Now, sometimes your soul, not your soul, your consciousness can become so altered that you prefer chaos. Sometimes it can. But your default is that you prefer peace. That's your default. Now, I can graft you. You can become altered from your default and prefer chaos, but you prefer peace. And the sign is this: is a child. When you want a child to rest, or you want a child to calm down, what do everybody say? Shh, shh. Right? So there's a sign in that. So they left and went into the hills for 3 days. And after those 3 days, there was a young guy. He said, Rasulullah, man, we own Mecca. Why we shouldn't leave? We should just take it. You always have to accommodate for that young spirit. The Prophet said, no, we don't do that. We have an agreement. So we don't do that. So they left. And they went back to Medina. And the Meccans came out of the hills into Mecca. And it was after this that one of the greatest strategic minds in the history of Islam took Shahada. His name was Khalid ibn al-Walid, the son of al-Walid ibn Mughira. Talk about contrast, right? His father was not a friend of the Prophet's at all. His father was a bitter adversary. Keep that in mind, because the point I'm about to make. So the other ruffians, this is what the history books, they say ruffians. The other thugs that were in Mecca, one named Abu Sufyan, Abu Jahl was dead now, and another one named Ikrimah ibn Abu Jahl, and both of them later accepted Islam, believe it or not. But those of you who know the history, you know it. They looked at Khalid and said, Khalid, what are you doing? How are you going to follow Muhammad? How are you going to take your shahada? Khalid said, there's no rational man that could see what I just saw and not realize that that is the messenger of God and that is the truth from God. Allahu Akbar. The etiquettes were so refined that it appealed to his nature above his nationalism, appealed to his nature above his ethnic pride, appealed to his nature above his tribalism, right? So that the very man his father fought to his dying day, Al-Walid ibn Mughira, fought the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam until he died. His son, and you know the relationship with the father and the son. And we just gave 3 lectures on the need for sacrifice, didn't we? We just gave 3 lectures on the need for sacrifice. Abraham and his father, Abraham and his son, Abraham and his people, right? This man was inspired so much that he defied what his father stood upon until the day he died, and said, no way can I see that. And now he didn't say this, but by way of interpretation, can I see so much peace? Can I see so much good behavior? Can I see so much proper etiquette? And what do y'all have? Y'all have savagery. As soon as they left Mecca, the party started again. People started drinking again. And you know what happens when you get drunk? You argue, you fight, you wrangle. You know what happens when you're drunk and you have a gambling debt? Somebody might get killed. So there was a wise social engineering American leader who said, if you want to show a dirty glass, you hold a clean glass next to it. That's what we should be, brothers and sisters. That's what all of our mosques should be. Our mosques should be places where there's peace. Our mosques should be places where there's etiquettes. And we should have standards. We don't harass people about coming with. So one of the etiquettes is to put your cell phone on vibrate or on silence. That's one etiquette. Now, while we don't harass people, you shouldn't come to the mosque sagging. You shouldn't. Leave that on the street. That's street behavior. You know that originated in prison. So just because we don't harass you about it doesn't mean you should disrespect this atmosphere. Just because we don't tell you to pull your pants up doesn't mean you shouldn't come in the house of God with your pants hanging down. No. That culture, that speaks to a problematic culture. And you should never follow problematic culture. So brothers and sisters, never take our spirit for mercy and compassion and lack of harassing people and allowing you to come as you are. Never take that to mean you can just come and do whatever you feel like you want to do. You have to still respect the house of God. You have to respect the sunnah of Muhammad the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you have to respect the shared space that we have as believers and always remain civil when we're in each other's presence. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihi al-kareem Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een amma ba'd. As we conclude, brothers and sisters, I just want to encourage us collectively to maintain civility when we're in each other's presence. And when we may disagree, or we disagree with something that's done, that we handle it in a civilized manner. Actually 99% of the people who work here are volunteers. They volunteer their own time, they volunteer their effort, and they do it to please God. I'm requesting that you as a community, you do not abuse, harass, or intimidate the people who volunteer here. And if you see someone abusing, harassing, then you remind them of the etiquette that you should have at the house of God. We all forget. We all make mistakes. We're all a couple minutes from falling back into our street mentality. We are. One brother said, we still in the street mentality. Inshallah, no. Inshallah, no. But we're all this close to falling back into that mentality. But that's not why we came here. If we want to be like we were on the streets, let's go back to the streets. If we want to act insultive, we want to raise our voice. We want to raise our voice at old women. We want to raise our voice at volunteers because we don't like the way they served food. Now, how petty is that? Instead of being thankful that the volunteer served them some food free, and that the volunteer got here at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that the volunteer was cooking all day, instead of being thankful, even if all they give you is a scoop of rice, and being grateful to God and praying for their success and praying for their forgiveness and praying that Allah reward them for their efforts, we let our ego get the best of us. And we begin to act like we act on the streets. But the atmosphere itself will not tolerate that. Then once it's brought to your attention, don't let Satan influence you to keep going down that path. Once it's brought to your attention, adjust and come back to the order of peace. Those of you who've been around here long enough know that I've been guilty in the past. And I used to be very brash. And I'm still going to make mistakes. And your job is to remind me. And once you remind me, my job is to accept the reminder and not be like Satan. When Satan was reminded, he was defiant. When Adam was reminded, he said, Rabbana, him and his wife, they said, Rabbana zalamna anfusana wa in lam taghfir lana wa turhamna lanakunanna minal khasirin. Oh our Lord, we have wronged our own selves, and if you don't have mercy upon us and forgive us, certainly we will be among those who are lost. Satan's response, ana khayru minhu aba wastakbara. He refused and he was arrogant. He perceived himself too big. Then he challenged God. Said, this one is not worthy of it. So the humble man is not worthy of submitting to. God guide us. May he increase our faith, increase our love and appreciation for one another. May he improve us as husbands and wives, as fathers and mothers, as children. Those of us who have families, may he improve our family lives. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. قل أن الصلاة ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له بذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين. أقيم الصلاة. استووا واعتدلوا. Look to your right and left. Make sure your lines are straight. Make sure you leave enough room in front of you to make sajda. Allah